The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. Of course, that is where we break down an SEC game that is an SEC team versus a non-conference opponent, and today we got one on opening weekend. It's opening Labor Day weekend, and this game is being played on a Monday. I'm pretty sure it's Monday, September 6th. As Ole Miss and Louisville meet up in Atlanta, Georgia, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Labor Day to play a big neutral site game. I mean, some of the neutral site games that you'll see on this day, on this weekend, you'll have Miami, Alabama, which is being played here 2 days prior. You're going to have Georgia, Clemson, which is the game of the year, in my opinion. LSU, UCLA, I know that that's not a neutral site game, but you have some stacked, really, really good quality. Penn State, Wisconsin. Week 1 is going to be absolutely stacked, and I'd love to talk about all of them, but for the sake that this is an SEC show, I won't talk about all of them. Louisville and Ole Miss. Louisville finished 12th in the ACC last year. They went 4-7, but I think that if you take Louisville on paper, that's not the team that you're going to get this season. And I think a lot of Louisville attributed last season was their turnover margin was terrible. Like, I think that they were minus 12 or something like that in turnover margin. It was terrible. And you look at some of the bigger games that they played and how many of those really were caused by those turnovers and close games, one-score games. You look at losing by 13 to Miami, which Miami was ranked at that time. You look at losing to 3 by Pitt, and you look at losing to only 5 by Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Louisville played a 12-7 game, which is something that you definitely don't see often. If Louisville can pick up some of the things and some of the problems that they had last season with holding on to the ball, you might see Louisville at least as a 5-6 team, maybe even flipped out a 6-5, and maybe even 7-4, something like that. I think Louisville has some talent on this team, especially last year. They had tons of talent, especially at the wide receiver position. Just was not able to hold on to the ball when it mattered most. Ole Miss last season, I think Ole Miss is arguably the team that I'm most high on in the SEC, or the team that I overrate the most, as many of you would put it. And by the way, just put out my North to South Show Ole Miss hat, so go click the link in the bio or hit that little notification and get yours. I think that the Ole Miss ones are the nicest one by all of them. I've said that about the Ole Miss and Auburn ones. Those are the two nicest out of all the hats. So definitely, if you're an Ole Miss fan, go get yours. Only $25 in our store. Ole Miss is a team that I'm very high on this season. We all know the story with how this is such an offensive-powered program. Lane Kiffin came in his first season at Ole Miss, and even though they went 5-5 last season, I still think that this was a huge checkmark season, a huge positive for Ole Miss and their fans, because you look at that Alabama game. They were competitive. I'd say that they probably had the second best game against Alabama compared to any other team, and I'd say Florida had the best. I mean, that SEC championship game, it was really coming down to the wire at some points, and let's say if John Mechie doesn't force that fumble on the Florida secondary or on the Florida DB, that game could be going down into a last-second drive for Alabama. Who knows? Who knows? That turnover was a big turning point in that game and how it finished and everything. Matt Corral is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. I'm high on that. I think that Ole Miss has a really good running back room in Ely and then Snoop Connor back there. The receiving core obviously took a huge hit due to Elijah Moore leaving onto the NFL, obviously, but I think you still got some talent on this wide receiving core. I look at Sanders especially. Tons of talent still left on this wide receiver core for Ole Miss to still have just as successful of an offense as they did last season. Louisville, Malik Cunningham is the quarterback there, and he's still going to be the quarterback this season. I'm off and on about him. I have mixed opinions on him. I still think he's a good guy, and I still think that if he makes more consistent plays and is better on a more consistent basis, he could definitely be one of the top-tier quarterbacks in all of the ACC this season. It's just interceptions are a problem with him. He threw 12 last season, threw for 20 touchdowns, and he is a mobile threat. I tell you, Malik Cunningham is a mobile threat. I think he either finished first or second in his team in rushing last year. I think he had over 600 yards rushing on the ground last season. Malik Cunningham is going to be a really, really good quarterback next season for Louisville if he can remain consistent. You'll look at the losses to Atwell and then Fitzpatrick on the outsides, who are the only two Louisville draft picks from this NFL draft class. It's going to be tough to replace those guys. I think that you're going to look at the rushing game to be a bit more reliable. In this sense, you also lose Hawkins. 2, I think he signed as an undrafted free agent. You lose him also this season, so you're going to have to get the ground game going, and you're going to have to get just the ground game going in your offensive line. I think I looked at the offensive line. They look like a really experienced group. Again, I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know everything about Louisville. I'm not a Louisville fan. I'm not that big of an ACC guy. But just looking at their offensive line and the years that they've played, I see a lot of experience on that offensive line. So I think that the rushing game is definitely going to have to be more of a factor this season for Louisville. I think defensively for both of these teams, I could speak to the same thing. They're both going to be weaker. They both gave up a lot of points last season. There's no way around it. So I have this game as a true shootout, and I don't know what better way we could spend a Labor Day Monday than finishing up with some college football after a stacked week with this game that is just going to be an offensive shootout. Because sometimes I just like sitting and watching teams run up the scoreboard. And when it is Lane Kiffin's mind behind that offense, I think it is a really, really fun thing to watch. So I'm high on this game. I think that this game is going to be great. Let's look at some keys for Ole Miss to win, because obviously I do this for the SEC teams. I think Ole Miss doesn't need to be the team on defense to force Louisville to punt every single drive. I don't think that they need to do that to win this game. I think that with Louisville's inconsistency in terms of holding onto the ball and forcing bad turnovers, if Louisville gives you the opportunity to give you the ball back, you just got to take advantage of that 1 or 2 times. Win the turnover battle, and I think Ole Miss is just fine in this game. I think going into what the point spread will be going into this game, I'm looking at Ole Miss by 8.5 in this game, and you just don't want to give them those points. You don't want to give them those 8.5 points that can really put them in a position to win this game. So just get your turnovers. Your offense will be fine. I say just ride the offense. Let Matt Corral do what he does. That's another key to the game. Just let him do what he does. Let him rush all over the field. Let the running back game do their thing, because I think Ely and Snoop Connor this season are going to be 2 dynamic guys in the SEC this season. Other than that, I don't think that there's much to say that Ole Miss needs to do different from what they did last year offensively. Obviously, Matt Corral can't have the game that he had against Arkansas and just be throwing 6 interceptions in one game. But if Ole Miss stays solid on their offense, I think that this Louisville offense is good. Like, don't get me wrong. I think they'll easily put up 30-plus points in this game. But I'm looking at, if I had to give a final score prediction for this game, I'm looking at, a 45-35 win for Ole Miss in this game. I like Louisville's offense. I like Malik Cunningham going into next season. Do I think that they're a team that can go out and score 30-plus points on a consistent basis? No, I do not, especially not after last season and them losing some big guys in Atwell and Fitzpatrick. And then you look at also Hawkins in the rushing game. So I think both of these teams are going to be good. I think moods can definitely change when this game finally comes. But all in all, I would take Ole Miss 45-35 in this game. Again, it's going to be an offensive shootout. Lots of touchdowns to be scored in this game, 110%.